The 17th UN Climate Change Conference of Youth, COI17. COI17 is an annual event under the banner of YONGO, the official youth constituency of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This year's event is hosted in Sharm el-Sheikh on the sidelines of the 27th session of the Conference of the Parties COP27. In the 17th UN Climate Change Conference of Youth in Sharm el-Sheikh from the 3rd to the 5th of November, thousands of young change makers from more than 140 countries will be gathered with one main goal: saving Earth. The COI17 event is organized in cooperation with the Egyptian Ministry of Sports ahead of the COP event, with the aim of serving as a space for capacity building and policy training in order to prepare young people for their participation in COP. COI officially started in 2005 in Montreal ahead of COP11 to make youth voices heard. In 2009, during COP15, the UNFCCC Secretariat and the member states to the convention officially recognized youth as an observer constituency of its own to represent the formal voice of children and youth in the UNFCCC processes. In 2021, COI16 was held in Glasgow, gathering thousands of young change makers from more than 140 countries. Minister of Youth and Sports Ashraf Subhi and Minister of Planning and Economic Development Hala Saeed discussed preparing for the Youth Day, which will be held within the framework of Egypt's hosting of the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh next November. Saeed reviewed the youth activities carried out by the ministry in the various fields of development and awareness, pointing to the role of the National Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, the training arm of the ministry, and the training programs and grants provided to young people. She explained that the importance of localizing the Sustainable Development Goals at the governorate level, noting that Egypt is one of the first countries in the world to localize the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, so that each governorate, especially youth as a key component, has sufficient information about those goals within their governorates. For his part, Subhi stressed the constant readiness to coordinate in any activity related to youth, pointing out to the importance of capacity building and youth rehabilitation programs, building the Egyptian human being by improving the health patterns, developing cultural and scientific awareness, launching creative skills, discovering and caring for people, qualifying young people for the labor market, and spreading the culture of self-employment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to shed more light on the 17th UN Climate Change Conference for Youth, COI17, we're joined over the phone by Dr. Mohamed Khalil, the Professor of English Language and Literature at the American University in Cairo. Dr. Khalil, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well. Dr. Khalil, now, everyone's been focusing on COP27. Last year we were focusing on COP26 in Glasgow, but not a lot of people are knowledgeable about the COI17, the conference regarding climate change under the UN auspices, of course, for youth. How important and integral is COI17 and the emphasis on the role of youth in terms of combating climate change?
Thank you very much. Actually, as you know, the whole world is so much concerned with the global warming happening. And we know quite well that it's a result of the pollution, you know, the fumes all over the world. And, of course, global warming refers to the increase in the temperature all over the world, which has led to the increase in the levels of the water. And that's why many cities around the world, across the coast, are threatened to disappear. I remember that the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom mentioned once that Alexandria in Egypt is actually under the threat of being drowned because of the global warming, okay? And the whole world is a kind of a campaign, awareness campaign around the world about how dangerous pollution is and how climate change is important. And actually in Egypt, I think authorities in Egypt have become were so smart in propagating about the conference for the sake of empowering youth and at the same time supporting tourism in Egypt. We know quite well that the conference will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh, right?
Yep.
So what happened is that Sharm el-Sheikh and many places, these are tourist attractions in Egypt. And at the same time, youth have become integral in the whole process of decision-making. We know quite well that under the auspices of our president, many youth have received programs of leadership training. Yes. And this is why those youth, young men and women, the current generations who have got the training, they will be representing a kind of, the voices of Egypt. And they will be proposing changes on how to save the environment. And this is quite important, that the whole world knows that Egypt is not simply the pyramids and the camel. No, we've got well-educated youth who can talk about the concerns of the world, global warming changes, climate change. We've got well-educated youth who can talk and propose several scenarios on how to save the planet, especially that this is a major concern, as I mentioned before.
Well, Dr. Khalil, do you feel, I mean, Egypt has been really leading the way recently in terms of youth forums and world youth forums and really using their influence and enthusiasm in dictating or influencing the state's policies. Now, do you feel that, as you've mentioned, with the training, the presidential leadership program and the real high caliber of Egyptian youth that can be present and will be present at COI 17, do you think that maybe there can be some sort of an influence on what happens in COP27, especially that the youth are not necessarily burdened with all the political and diplomatic pressure that maybe a lot of world leaders and politicians are burdened with?
Definitely, yes, because if you have a look at the agenda of the whole conference, you'll find out that youth have taken different topics under the whole theme of the climate change. So we'll talk about the role of the government, the role of media in raising awareness, the role of social media influencers and celebrities. So when we talk about the problem of climate change, we'll find that youth are taking a lead role.
Yes.
In understanding and dissecting the whole problem and dividing into sub-themes, and each group of youngsters and youth are presenting solutions and proposals. I believe, as I mentioned before, this is quite important, and it's quintessential for our government to give, the voice to the youth. Let them speak for themselves. Let them just say what they can help as part of their voluntary non-profit role. Because after all, as you know, the world organizations appreciate the efforts of youth. Especially, I don't know if you know that or not, but in the educational field, when we provide scholarships for youth, we usually ask them, have you provided any non-profit charity support to your country and community? And this is part of it. And this is why many young people nowadays are very keen on attending the conference and even participating in it. Because this will add to their CV. This will add to their future endeavors. If they want to travel abroad, they'll say, one day I've represented my country in a world conference. And of course, the whole world is now focusing on Egypt. And this gives a message to everybody that Egypt enjoys peace and a very high level of security, which in its turn means more, more tourists will visit Egypt, and more, maybe the whole world will see how young people in Egypt can talk for themselves. And by the way, this itself defeats all the negative images that some propagate about, that we don't have this kind of democracy, that youth cannot speak. No, young people can talk, young people can even participate in global concerns and issues.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned the role that is being played by NGOs and civil societies and the development work that's being done, be it environmentally or human development. And a lot of these NGOs, if not even most of them, are operated, and really the youth are operating it, running it, participating in it initiating the plans, be it on the ground or at least planning it. So do you feel that this is a reason why in climate change in specific that is based or will be very dependent on the role of NGOs and civil societies, then the youth can have a big say and a big role to play?
Yes, of course. And nowadays, world organizations depend on youth. We have the Youth Forum. We had so many youth forums now in Egypt. And we know quite well that in the last forum, there was a kind of, mini government representative. I don't know if you recall this or not, but there was a kind of a mini government, and
Yes.
young people were representing different ministries, and they were discussing with the actual ministries. But they were discussing the issues as if they were ministers. So this means that you feel that the whole government is grooming youth to take leadership roles in the future. And this is how a smart government should do, is that we should, of course, appreciate the experts and the expertise and experience of the older generations. But at the same time, we've got to pay more attention to young people, since they've got the passion and the ambition to make their dreams come true. So we should help them and put them on the right track. And at the same time, you know quite well that the vision of Egypt 2030 is prepare them for the world market. If we talk about the world market, it means that young people have got the critical thinking skills. They know how they can negotiate, discuss, and present. And this is mainly one of the subsidiary aims of the conference.
Yes. Well, Dr. Khalil, in this year's COP27, it really focuses on translating or transforming the pledges that have been made in COP26 in Glasgow and even the preceding COPs. How was the COP16 that also took place in, the COI rather 16 that took place in Glasgow as well last year? What were the outcomes then, and what do you feel the outcomes of COI 17 in Sharm el-Sheikh next November should be?
Well, the previous conference aimed at controlling the climate change across the world, especially that people have started to feel that we are actually facing a problem with the melting of the North Pole and increasing the level of the seas and oceans across the world. This poses a threat to the world's security and the safety of many nations. And that's why the previous United Nations Climate Change Conference, the previous conference, recommended that there must be some restrictions on industries to reduce factory fumes, at the same time reducing the amount of waste and raising awareness through the media and the social media about the dangers of, affecting or endangering the environment, Mother Earth, after all. So the whole climate change conference before shed light on the important role of environmental protection, all the plans and procedures, controlling the world temperature, also reducing the amount of pollution from different various means of transportation, and mainly encouraging electric energy and renewable energy as well. And by the way, I don't know if you know that or not, but Sharm el-Sheikh now has become a city that provides many stations for electric cars. So electric cars can be recharged. There are stations for charging electric cars, and we've seen stations for that. And this has become an initiative that will proceed after that and maybe expand all across the country. And I've seen it in some places. But I was so happy to see that the Prime Minister inaugurates new stations, not petrol station anymore, but electric stations, which can recharge electric cars, which was one of the recommendations of the previous conference, that there must be a way to support renewable energy, because wind energy, electric energy, because, we have to do something about saving Earth.
Yes. Well, Sharm el-Sheikh has been transformed to a green city, as you've mentioned, and Egypt has been really working hard in the energy sector, working on green energy, green economies, renewable energy. Now, do you feel that with COP27 and COI17 taking place in Egypt, in Africa, it's a really good opportunity to showcase the role that can be played by Egyptian and African youth, and Egypt as a country that is seriously taking the green economy and the green transformation seriously?
Yes, of course. And I believe that within a couple of years, Egypt will be producing and will be manufacturing electric cars. Okay, we know quite well that there are famous brands across the world, but this is a new transformation. You know, it's all for environmental purposes that we have to go green. And of course, I know that the coming conference will also recommend less use of paper so that we do not cut trees. We have to go green. And even if you go now to ATMs or you know, automatic teller machines, they will always provide you with this option on the screen: do not print out the paper of the, you know, any financial transaction. You have to go green. Go green means less paper, don't cut trees, electric cars, go green, respect the environment, raise awareness, and this is what we'll see in Sharm el-Sheikh, thanks to the help of the government and the cooperation with youth, and of course, our young generations who are really well educated, have been so knowledgeable in this field. And I think there will be so many proposals from youngsters, from young people, from different universities, by the way. I can see that, you know, coming from a background as a university professor, I've seen young people coming from governmental different regions. And this is something else. They're not coming only from Cairo, Alexandria, or the main cities. They'll be coming from remote areas to give a message to everyone around the world that Egyptian young generations are really concerned, and they know quite well knowledgeable about the environmental issues.
Yes. Dr. Mohamed Khalil, pardon, the English language professor of language and literature at the American University in Cairo. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, people will be, I mean, not just Egypt, but the whole world will be focusing on COP27 that will be taking place less than a month from now in Sharm el-Sheikh. Also, COI17 will be taking place, and we're going to be following all the latest developments regarding such big events coming up, taking place in Egypt next month. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate, but before we go, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.